My name is Julie Clark, and I am the P through 12 English Language Arts Coordinator, and I am happy to be here with you tonight. And we are so honored to be able to have Anita Archer here with us, Dr. Anita Archer. And she has been here with many of our educators from around the state that have come from the very top in Rich all the way down to our Washington School District down in St. George. And they have been participating.
I love when you say
I know St. George is lovely, especially this time of the year.
Yep.
Clean air, warm
I
temperatures.
didn't know that clean air was an issue until I came to Salt Lake.
And then you were like, ooh, this air looks not very good.
It
Yes,
looks unique.
it's January and February in Utah. It looks like this the whole month. And
I'm
then,
just glad to look at your mountains and see some snow though.
yes,
That was
yes, we
pretty-
did get a little bit of snow last week, which is not nearly as much as what we need, but it is some.
Yes.
Some. But we apologize for being late, and thank you for those that are online and being patient with us. So we will go ahead and introduce Dr. Anita Archer. She has been in education for how many years?
58 actually.
58 years, and her focus is on that explicit instruction, and she works with districts and state departments and educators all around the country to help them implement explicit instruction into the classroom. And so we are so lucky to have her here with us tonight. And so we'll turn the time over to you, and I'm going to give you this extra microphone.
Do we need an extra
For-
microphone?
Yes, this goes with the webinar on the Zoom, so the people on Zoom can hear you too.
Well, Zoom people, of course I want
Yes.
to.
Yes.
So welcome people that are here. Welcome Zoom people. And I am really deeply honored to be in Utah. I have had many times I've been in Utah over time, over that 58 years, and most of the 50 years was training teachers. So, but to be here, you had some of the earliest laws in terms of teaching reading and also follow through. Like universities must teach it, good job. And if the kids or the students aren't able to pass a test, then they could get retaught. You've done a beautiful job, Utah. So this is called Explicit Instruction, Effective and Efficient Teaching for Utah Educators. And I'm going to leave this code up at the end again because all of the slides are available to you. You just need the code to operate it. Great. All right. And this is sponsored by the Utah State Board of Education. Woo woo. This is a book that I wrote on explicit instruction with Charles Hughes that we're spending a few years in revising. And it's a very good book. Okay. Now, we are going to do active participation, and those of you who are remote, you're going to have to do pretend active participation. Because we know that good instruction, whether it is in preschool or it is in elementary years or middle school or high school or university, needs to be interactive, where students are responding in order so that they can learn. So we are going to do that. And one thing we're going to do is when answers are short and the same, you're going to say them together. This is actually one of the most powerful ways to actively engage students, because anytime we have an answer that is short and the same, I don't have to call on someone. I can have everybody say it. So I'm going to signal it this way. I'll ask a question. I'll put up my hands. This means think. Do not blurt. And when I lower my hands, you'll say it. For example, it's Thursday. What day of the week is it, everyone? It's excellent. And you live in what state, everyone? You live in Utah. And in what community do you live, everybody? Okay, it doesn't work. Short call responses only work when it is short and the same. It only works when it is what, everyone? Short and the same. Now, would it be helpful when we teach things for us to have some repetition and practice? Would that be helpful? Yes or no, everyone? Well, short choral responses gives us that opportunity. Now, sometimes we have longer answers that are different, and we might want to have students share it with a partner. And for really almost 20 years, we have had, oh, turn and talk, oh, turn and talk, oh, turn and talk, oh, turn and talk. Now, there's one challenge there, or more than one. Is it possible that some students are not on topic? Is that possible? Yes or no, everyone? Very possible. But is it also possible that someone in that partnership might dominate the partnership? Yes or no? All right. So I hope that if you are at home, that you're saying the answers. Yes, you'll look odd for your family, but just tell them you're a smart odd. Okay. So what we now know is that we should have structured partners. And so everybody needs a partner. I'm going to you will have to find a okay, and you're all by yourself, so move so that you have someone else, okay? But principals, you should give every teacher here an even number classroom. And when their partner is gone, you should just send their other partner home. And it's never going to happen, okay? So we're going to find a partner and give yourself the numbers 1 and 2. Go. And at home, you're going to be both. Because you're by yourself, you'll be a 1 and a 2. You're going to have to move, so you have a partner. Good, excellent. Partners. Okay, everybody stare at your partner so I know you have one. Raise your hand if you are a 1. And raise your hand if you're a 2. Raise your hand if you're a 1. Raise your hand if you're a 2. Raise your hand if you're a 2. Okay, caught some of you. So structured partners, and you could use whatever labels you use. I always tell this story of walking into a class because I was forced to do 5 years of work in Hawaii, having to go often. It was a good job. And I walked into a class that had sunshine and rainbows. Now, think about that for a moment. If you live in Portland, Oregon, we neither have sunshine or rainbows. So it wasn't a good labels, but it worked in Hawaii. We basically used 1 and 2, A and B. All right. Okay. So, and when the answers are long and different, as they will be this afternoon or this evening, you could say the answer to partners, and I will say 1 say the answer, then 2s, or 2s say the answer, then 1s, with the purpose of not letting one student dominate the partnership. And for the virtual people, you got to have a pretend partner. Turn and say an answer to a partner, pretend, and then back. Now your family thinks you're really odd. All right. Now, one of the challenges we have as teachers, and most of you are elementary teachers, is providing enough reading for students that they will get better at reading. Now, we've had a nationwide decline in reading scores, partially because over COVID, we had to moderate the amount of reading that we did with students. We had a difficult time doing choral reading. We didn't have partners and so forth. So we have to look for practices that would be useful. And one thing we could do is read together. So particularly in those decodable books that come with your programs, we could read together. But it's hard to get it to sound beautiful. And here's the 2 errors that teachers often make. In choral reading, they often read too fast. Now I can look at my own videos and I say, oh, Archer, you are reading it with your level of fluency, not their level of fluency, so we're not together. The other thing is very simple. If you want to get them together, teach them to pause at the comma and stop at the period. Pause at the comma and stop at the period. Everybody with big voices, even if you're at home, and go. Pause at the comma and stop at the period. So if you have someone that's gone ahead, then they have to back up and join you again. Or if they're behind, they have to join you so you can keep them together. But it's a way to get more reading. And we might use what's called close reading, where we read a part. So today I modeled that with your coaches, and that we read, I stopped, and they said the word that I'd left out. Now, raise your hand if you happen to teach 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th graders. Okay? Sometimes they are not totally attentive. So we did studies on what would support them being more attentive, and Close did it. I read, stop, and you say the next word. But today I also used with the coaches another option for close reading. I read the first part of a sentence, I pause, and you complete the sentence. And that holds more of the meaning together. But the whole goal here is getting them to read and read and read some more, and read and read and read some more. So what else are we going to do? Well, these are the ones we're going to do virtually, but of course there are other things we would add if we were in the classroom, such as actively participating by holding up a whiteboard, holding up a card with an answer, holding up their fingers to show which answer it is, 1 or 2 or 3, it's number 2. So the big idea is good instruction is always interactive. Now, I always like to remind us of our purpose. And I have to tell you, I've already met many of you, and some of you I have had a possibility of training in the past, or you have very good education from your universities. So as we go through this, my first goal today with this from 5 to 7, I was going to say 5 to 9, and some of you are already like getting up and leaving, 7, is first to really honor you for what you already do. So you're going to say, oh, I always do that. Ooh, I always do that. Ooh, I am so good. I am very, very good. Now we have one principal here, and for the person sitting right next to the principal can just lean over and say, God, I am really good. But my second goal is to remind you of what makes a difference in terms of learning, because that is our purpose, that not just some learn, but all learn to the highest level that they can. Our goal is learning and more, learning, big voices, and more, learning and more, learning and more, learning and more, learning. But the reason we're here today is to remind us of this, and that is what we do when we teach directly leads to learning. There are research validated practices that if we consistently use it, we will have more learning. And that is what we want. For example, if I told the students the goal of the lesson, there would be more what, everyone? More learning. If I did dynamic demonstration of new materials or very clear explanations, there would be more learning. If I provided, after I demonstrated, had guided practice where I led them through using it so they'd have high accuracy, there would be more what, everyone? More learning. And if before I had them do it by themselves, I'd had lots of guided practice, and now they were 90% accurate before I gave them independent work, there would be more what, everyone? More learning. And this is one that our curriculum writers forgot, that if I provided an adequate amount of practice, I teach it, we practice, practice, practice it. I teach it, we practice, practice, practice it. Woo! We go a week, we come back to it. 2 weeks, we come back to it with spaced practice. Would there be more learning? Yes or no? So teaching makes a difference. Do you know that many teachers do not believe, in one study, that what they do made a difference in student learning? Oh my God, that's like a doctor saying, Well, I don't think that anything I do helps anybody get better. Find a new doctor. Because what we want is all the teachers on our team, all the teachers in our district to know and to understand that if they use high leverage teaching practices, that the learning goes up in the school. And the doctors who utilize research validated practices, then the health of their patients goes up because they know how to take it to that point and maintain it. All right. Now, here's what I see when I visit schools, and I visit hundreds of schools. A week from now, I'm going to go to the state of Washington, and I'm spending 5 days going to different classes and giving feedback and training the principals and the coaches on how to give feedback. And then I'm going to New York State to do the same thing. Then I'm going to Michigan and so forth. But what I see is often activity-driven versus learning-driven instruction. So you get through the activity, but you haven't really focused on ensuring that they got it, that they learned it. And that's what we want as our outcome. We want what, everyone? We want learning. And we can do that through teaching. All right. Well, I was asked this week, what is the scientific research base for what we do as teachers? And raise your hand if you are central office individuals. Raise your hand. I met these group over here. Okay. And raise your hand if you're another. I'm curious. Okay. But all of us need to know the science of instruction. What makes a difference so that we can provide instruction that is not based on just belief systems like Mrs. Elliott, but rather on what research has shown us. So one body of knowledge that we have is the science of reading, which was one that has definitely been adopted in the state of Utah. In fact, I am certain that you have heard the 5 pillars of reading. Turn to your partner and talk it over and come up with the 5 pillars of reading instruction and go. At home, you're saying it to yourself. Look at me when you're done. Okay, let's see how you did. I think you probably did very well. The science of reading mostly focused on, as it came out, what to teach. And I bet you had phonemic awareness. Raise your hand if you had phonemic awareness. Phonics, or it could be stretched out to word reading, which would include reading multisyllabic words with prefixes and suffixes. And fluency. Raise your hand if you had fluency. In other words, it's not enough to read accurately. You have to read with automaticity. And raise your hand if you had vocabulary. Excellent. Woo-woo. And the last one is what, everyone? Comprehension. Good job. But comprehension is basically an outcome. You can read the words, you know the meaning of the words, you have background knowledge, and thus we set you up for what? Comprehension. Everybody? Comprehension. Beautiful. So we have the science of reading. And we also have, for at least about the last 20 years, much coming from the science of learning. And this is built by cognitive scientists, usually professors in psychology who are studying how we learn and what we could learn from it. Well, they have taught us some important things and reminded us that we as human beings have our thinking done in working memory. And but working memory is very fragile and very limited. I always use this analogy because my office is on the third floor in my house. And I can't tell you how many times I will say, oh, I need to look at that book that is by Doug Carnine on teaching history. And then I'll go down one flight and another flight and stop and look at the flowers and check what's happening in the kitchen. And I get down there and think, why are you here, Archer? Raise your hand if you've had ever that little challenge, so you know the fragileness of working memory, right? And our goal is to have enough repetition, enough retrieval practice that we will remember it and it will be stored for a long time in permanent memory. There's some forgetting in permanent memory, but that is where we store things. Now, this is one of the most important ideas out of the science of learning, is recognizing that we think our awareness is in working memory, but it's fragile and it is limited. So we need to connect it to what is in permanent memory as a support for us. So when kids are sounding out words, they have in their permanent memory the immediate recognition of letter sound associations, so that reduces the cognitive load. True? But a cognitive load is one of the biggest ideas out of the science of learning, that we have to be careful about the cognitive load, break things down so they can obtain it, connect it to what is in terms of background knowledge, have them retrieve things from memory. Those are the kind of ideas that have been added by cognitive science. But when I first started studying and teaching people about effective instruction, I used the research that came out of the science of instruction. Now, the science of instruction started by looking at expert teachers and seeing what they did. And that the biggest name that you'll hear around that is Rosenshine. We're going to send you some articles too. Can we do that? Or okay, we can do that so that you could read some articles on explicit instruction. But Rosenshine, who was at University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, had a whole team, and they went out and watched teachers that were particularly good at getting outcomes, and they said, oh, what do they do that makes a difference? And they identified them. Those are the ones we're going to look at. And then they did studies to show if I teach these to teachers and they use them again and again, will there be higher outcomes? That's why it's important to you, because woo-woo, there was. So we have all of these areas. And what is useful is that even the Reading League, which many of you be a part of, the Reading League first had observation forms and documents that you look at, and they focus primarily on what we should teach. But more recently, they have learned that we have to do more than that. Yes, we're going to teach phonemic awareness, but what are we going to use in terms of high leverage practices to teach it? And we are going to teach vocabulary, and what practices are we going to use so that they learn it? What practices are we going to learn? So science of reading has joined the science of learning and the science of instruction. And the good thing about these two is they both decided that spaced practice was a good idea, that very explicit instruction was a good idea, that we should have practice that is over time, that we should have retrieving information, not just recapping it, so there is convergence. Now, that's got to make you happy as educators, because it means that we're getting stronger and stronger and stronger research so that we can have research-informed teaching. And you can keep adding to it. I keep adding to it. I keep adding to it because we learn more. But to be a profession, we have to follow science in our area, and we have to use best practice. All right? So we're going to leap on that. But I'm often asked, what is explicit instruction? Well, it is, what word, everyone? Unambiguous. And when I talked to the coaches, I remembered this one moment. You asked me what's moments in time that you really remember. And I was training teachers. And a teacher said, would you demonstrate how to teach algebra, the order of operations? Raise your hand if you'd have to go back and review a bit to know what they were. Okay, so I did, and I taught them brilliantly. I introduced them dynamically. I modeled it. I did them in order, and we practiced it, and we learned the order of operations. And afterwards, the math teacher came up to me and said, oh my God, they got it. You see, that's sort of our purpose, that we get it, right? And that comes from the way we design our instruction and also how we deliver it. So when we look at explicit instruction, the elements of it relate either to design or delivery. And when should it be used? Because some people have misinterpreted having good instruction and thinking it only is needed for special ed students in Tier 3. And that is not true. That is not true. They need it. It's necessary. It is absolutely necessary with students who are struggling in Tier 2 or Tier 3. But I don't know about you. One day, we had leakage in a pipe, and we had a plumber come, and I wanted to know how to handle it in the future. I do not want to just be told how to do it. I want to see it, right? You want them to demonstrate it, and you want to demonstrate it with very clear language. So that you really have been introduced it in a way that you could do it. My grandmother would teach us cooking, but she wouldn't just say, here is the recipe, good luck. She'd say, watch me, first we do this, and then we do this, now you try it, we'll do it together. So we did 2 pies here. Mine never looked like a pie, but I tried. I'm really good at eating out now. So when children need explicit instruction is when they have, and read it with me and go, little or no background knowledge. Almost all of you, except you, the high school teacher, are students that don't have background knowledge. Your students don't know about fractions. They do not know about letter-sound associations. They do not know about counting to 100. So you teach novices, not experts. The mistake we made sometimes is thinking they have the same brain with the same information in it as we do. Woo-woo, not true. So basically, you look at elementary education, no matter what area it is, reading, writing, spelling, math, science, social studies, the best research says, teach it because they have little or no background knowledge. Now, I have to tell you, in high school, you're teaching physics, no background knowledge. You are teaching advanced algebra, no background knowledge. You are teaching the history of the United States, they don't know it. So you teach novices too, but many high school teachers forget that their students are not experts, they're novices. So who do you teach, novices or experts, everyone? Novices. And anytime content is new, we would have it best taught by very, very good, explicit instruction, actively engaging the students. And raise your hand if you do teach Tier 2 or Tier 3 students. Intervention, special ed, high in the air, high in the air. That's what I thought as I met you, quite a few of you. You know that we do not have even one program for intervention that is discovery. I mean, if they had discovered it, you would never have met them as an interventionist. Obviously, discovery did not work. And so it is particularly essential for those low-performing students. Well, just to prove the point, when we look at different academic areas, almost all of them, or all of them, would say, teach it. So I looked at what is called an IES practice guide, Institute of Educational Science practice guide, that reviews research on 1 or 2 issues a year and puts out guidance for state departments, for districts, for teachers on what would be best practice. But when I looked at them, I noticed something. Foundational skills, woo, teach, don't hope, pray. You could pray, it's always an extra thing to do, but teach it. Teach them how to decode words, have a look at word parts in long words, how to write and recognize words. Teach it, don't just hope. And teach them academic language and vocabulary. But it's all through the grades. You want them to be a writer? Then teach it. Watch me do this. Now you do it with me. Now you do it on your own. If you are teaching comprehension in K1, it helps to teach them comprehension strategies and how to use the structure of informational text and narrative. But teach, 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 teach. That's why we do not have our title changed to discoverers. We still have teachers. Intervention benefits from explicit teaching and preschool. Raise your hand if your district has a preschool. Okay. And you might have Head Start in your area is another type of preschool. There is an excellent practice guide for preschool that I would share with all of your preschool. What do the kids need to have before they go to kindergarten if they're going to be successful? Excellent reviewed. So we're going to look at the elements of explicit instruction. And again, I'll tell you, my goal was to honor you for what you already know and remind you of things that you might want to be more intentional about in your own work. Okay, so let us learn. We put it in categories of content, design, delivery, and practice. So it's a review. If you go to explicitinstruction.org, not .com, but .org, explicitinstruction.org, videos that I've made over time are there, and you could watch a 5th grade one and 2nd grade and high school and middle school ones to see these in action. So the first big idea is we cannot teach everything. We have to hone in on what is most critical. And the most recent example I had was looking at a math book where we turned the pages. And took out the sequence of what we're to teach, and we were told, and 5th graders have not gotten down the ones, the tens, the hundreds, the thousands, the 10,000. We said, like, skip it. I was doing another analysis in all of the major books that are major programs that are literacy, and we looked at the morphemes in terms of prefix and suffixes. And some of them taught some prefixes that were so low in usage that even when we asked Google, tell us all of the words that you have that have this, one of them had 2 words in English. And that would be like, skip it. So my motto here is for us to select evidence-based instruction so we know what to teach in reading, because we got over whole language and realized, like, woo-woo, maybe we should teach them how to read. And Utah said, yes, we're going with it. Good job, Utah. And the Archerism, teach the stuff and cut the fluff, everybody. Teach the stuff and cut the fluff. Now, immediately people say, but we're supposed to teach our programs with perfect fidelity. Well, it should be researched so that we know from research what we need to teach. But also you have to remember that you're in Utah, and what places that do like wonders and into reading and wit and wisdom, what they did is they looked at the standards in all big states. Woo-woo, you're not. And so then they had it so that they would check off, does California say we better do this? Ooh, we better add that. Ooh, does Texas think we should do it? Does New York think we should do it? They don't ask Wyoming. So the reason that happens is you kind of end up with curriculum that are kind of sometimes stuffed. Like someone must have said they needed to know Roman numerals in 5th grade, so they threw it in there so they could get checked off. But teach the stuff and cut the fluff, everybody. Teach the stuff and cut the fluff. So you already are totally aware of the major model that's used in your state. The simple view of reading, where we have word recognition, we have language, what everyone, comprehension, and when I can read the words and I have the language skills, then I can have reading comprehension as an outcome. This is one of my favorite diagrams, different than the one used in your state. But if you have new teachers, and I've met 3 new teachers sitting right in this room, I like this because it doesn't just show the content we should teach, but sort of when visually you teach it. So you teach print concepts. Like we read from the top to the bottom, we read left to right. We turn the page when we're done. You teach phonological, particularly phonemic awareness. You teach students how to sound out basic words, 1-syllable words, as well as multisyllabic words. And you work on fluency, which has 3 attributes. And tell your partner the 3 attributes of fluency. Go. Okay, looking up here. Some of you, I gave you a little hint beforehand, but you already knew this, that fluency first C, and then you work on rate, and then you work on expression. So that is where we go. We're teaching them letter sounds. We put them in words. We work on accuracy. Then we work on more automaticity in terms of rate. And then we add expression. So when I was 60, I got a cello and I started taking up the cello. And I got the best cello teacher in Portland, Oregon, to teach me. And then about a few months into it, he leaned over and said, Anita, we need a little pianissimo there. And I turned to him and said, Hamilton, when you learn something new, first you need to go with accuracy. And on a cello, it's the right notes. And I am not there. And then later, we could pick up the speed and read it with fluency. But in this life, I will never get to expression. So it is across things that we would have that sequence of learning. But when we look at the other part of the simple view, oral language including vocabulary, could that be across all grades? Yes or no, everyone? So our high school teachers should teach vocabulary. Our 5th grade teachers should teach vocabulary. Our preschool teachers should teach vocabulary. And we should teach knowledge. Basic knowledge that is background for what we're reading, but also topical knowledge. I am teaching you in science about the structure of plants and photosynthesis. And so I want to teach you knowledge, and I want you to also learn syntax and comprehension strategies. So I like this because it shows that literacy does not end in 5th grade. It is continued to be added to. And is it possible that you, as competent adults, could continue to learn vocabulary? Yes or no? So I was telling people that I learned a vocabulary word last weekend, and that was a difference between an acronym and a initialism. Have you ever heard the word initialism? It's a word. An acronym is where you use the letters to represent a word, but you put it into a new word. We talk about NATO. Many of us don't know what NATO means, but each of the letters, the national. Okay, you work on that one. Okay. Or POTUS, President of the United States. Okay, that's where your word. But when you have FBI, it's separate letters, and that's initialism. Ooh. Okay, so I just proved that we could all learn more. Okay, so we're going to teach critical content. We're going to teach the stuff and cut the fluff, everybody. Teach the stuff and cut the fluff. So I just gave you permission. If you saw something that had very low likelihood to make a difference in the learning of students, that you might reduce that. Okay, and then this one's really, really important. I'm going to read when I get to bold, you're going to add to it. And if you are at your computer, you're joining us. Break down material into, everyone, smaller instructional steps, obtainable chunks, and systematically sequence those steps. This has everything to do with cognitive load. You would not, as kindergarten and first grade teachers, teach 5 new letter sound associations in one lesson. If you do, call me. We'll review putting into smaller instructional steps. But it's all about cognitive load. Now, even if you reflect back on college, did you ever have like a statistics class where there was so much coming at you that you could not process? Raise your hand if you've had that experience. So us breaking it down into obtainable pieces. Sometimes it means taking something and just learning one step and then adding to it. One of my favorite materials for you would be, and for me, would be the writing revolution for teaching writing at your grade levels, particularly 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Raise your hand if you're already using the Writing Revolution by Judith Hochman. If not, that's a book that's worth ordering if you're a 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade teacher or middle school or high school. But they have broken it down into small numbers. But one thing that impressed me was that they didn't do everything at once. So for example, they taught the students, here's a plan, and the plan had the topic sentence, and the critical details, and then to how to write the topic sentence, and the details in connected discourse. But they didn't do it all at once. Nope. They would read an article with students. What is it about the topic? And what are 3 important things it said about the topic? And they do that 1 article, 2 article, 3 article, 4, because it reduced the cognitive load. And then they said, now we're going to read a new article, and we're going to figure out the topic. We're going to figure out the 3 important details, and we're going to write a topic sentence, but we're still not going to write it. And then we did that again and again and again. So they reduced the cognitive load so that you could handle it. Now, this is something you constantly have to ask yourself as you're planning and ask yourself as you're teaching. If you have a lot of kids who look confused, it's probably because the cognitive load was too high. All right, so just some examples. So Kilpatrick has written about a lot about phonemic awareness, early phonemic awareness, basic phonemic awareness, and advanced phonemic awareness. And I put in red here the only 2 that have been researched so that they are informed, research-based practice, teaching how to blend sounds into words without saying the sounds without stopping and being able to sound the words, or segmenting the words into individual sounds. Blending is necessary for sounding out words. Segmenting is necessary for encoding or spelling the words. Or a friend of mine, Dr. Doug Carnine and Ed Kamenui, did research on the order of single letter sounds. And then they looked at this how we'd break it down and how we'd order things in other areas. And first they said that we should have a systematic, not random sequence, because sometimes we told teachers during whole language, if there is a interesting sound within a word, you might like introduce it. Okay, this is called like random education. And we didn't do so well in random. Is it possible that even it came to Utah? But is it possible that some students, particularly students who had dyslexia, might have left school without the level of reading that we wanted? And your state is dedicated that this won't happen, that you're going to teach them so well in first grade and second grade and third grade that they can read the words. And then you say, but we just want to focus on meaning. Well, if you can't read the words, there is no meaning hope. You've got to be able to read the words and have the words in your language. So what do they think? Well, that for anything you teach, you should start by teaching things that are useful, that have very high frequency of occurrence, whether it be sounds or whether it be math algorithms or whether it's vocabulary or whether it's morphemes, leading to lower frequency. And you need to go from simple to complex. So let's just look at this. So they put here, what sound, everyone? Ah, what sound, everyone? Are they high frequency, yes or no? Better than Q and Z. So they looked at them in terms of frequency, and they also looked at them from going from simple to complex. For example, the letter A is the sound is what we would call a continuous sound. Ah, give me an A. Ah, excellent. And M is continuous. What sound? You can hold it and not distort it. But when we get to T, it's a stop sound. Fast, it is not ta, it is t. Everybody, what is it? T. One day I'm sitting down with a little boy and giving him a test, and he's sounding out a word, and he goes, ta-ipa. I said, what word? And he said, ta-ipa. That's because he's treating stop sounds as continuous. And we also know that things that might be confusing need to be separate. For example, here we have the letter I, and here we have, the letter E. Now, you would not, as two of the programs that we reviewed, taught I and E in the same lesson. The sound for I, everybody say it. I. Say the sound for E. E. Same articulation, very clear. Would it be confusing? You know, unless you're trying to fill up tier 2 and tier 3, you would want them far apart. So we know for everything we teach that it is helpful if go from high frequency to low frequency, simple to complex, and separate things that are confusing. And I'm going to skip from examples just because of time. So our Archerism here is, and read it, everyone, be aware of cognitive overload. Do you have a question? Okay, it's because of the screen. Okay. All right, it was just such an interesting that you did it as a pair. And I noticed you did it. And I don't even know if you noticed it, but woo-woo. Well, as a teacher, do you ever have to be aware of what your students are doing? Yes or no? I was asked by a teacher just a week ago, well, you talk about monitoring. When should we monitor? Always. You should monitor while you're teaching. You should monitor when they're doing independent work. You should monitor when they're lining up. You should monitor when they go to the brunch. the lunchroom. You have to monitor when they're in line to get their food. You're just like monitoring possibly. And every time you don't monitor, woo, something happens. Okay, beware of cognitive overload. And our whole goal to break it down into obtainable pieces is to reduce cognitive overload so we can have more, what, everyone? More success. And we know that the more successful you are in any area, that it actually breeds success. And the research shows that success is highly related to motivation. When you want to give it your energy, your attention, your time, is when you've been successful. I've been following the research on productive struggle. And what we find is, let's say in math, we start with a problem, an authentic problem at the beginning before we've taught them. Could children be faced with failure and not learning it from that kind of start with discovery? Could that happen, yes or no? So we're actually reducing their motivation by not teaching them. We know that math, like in all areas, it will help if we teach knowledge first. Teach knowledge, teach knowledge, teach knowledge, teach knowledge, and then do authentic problems. And then you really are delighted by being able to do, have motivation, energy, and wanting to learn it. Now, if you were taking physics in a high school or in a university, and they gave an authentic problem that you were supposed to figure out and use your current knowledge, well, you got some knowledge. But when you're in second grade and you're given a problem that you don't have the knowledge, then you think, I'm stupid, I can't do it. And it reduces your success, which reduces your motivation. All right. Woo, woo, woo. All right. Well, design of instruction. What would I like to see if I saw one of your lessons? First of all, it appears that it would be useful if you would be using lessons or developing lessons. I mostly want you to use ones that are available to you that are first, what, everyone? Organized and focused. So I could walk in and say, ooh, they're learning how to write a summary. Ooh, they are learning OI and OY and words. Ooh, I should be able to see what it is that it's focused on. And so organized and focused lessons. Now, basically, this is the law in the schools I work with. Teach organized and focused lessons on critical content in every session. That there is a purpose of every session. And I told you, our purpose was to go over the elements of explicit instruction so that you could be reminded to utilize them. And now we're going through that content. So there is a match between what I hope to teach you and what I'm teaching. And the Archerism here is the one that I've used with all the university classes I've taught. How well you teach equals how well they learn. There's a direct relationship here. Everybody saying it with me with your perky evening voice. Go. How well you teach equals how well they learn. And the lesson might have a, what, everyone, an opening where you would get their attention. You might go back and do some, what, everyone, some review. Now, review is really interesting because most teachers go back and review what they've already taught necessary for today's lesson by doing a recap. But what we know is most powerful in a review is not just listening to the teacher tell it again, but for the teacher to ask questions that force you to recall the information, called retrieval practice. What is it called, everyone? Retrieval practice. Now, with the coaches on Monday, I used this example. I was in a kindergarten class. Raise your hand if you're like in kindergarten. You're not in kindergarten, but you teach kindergarten, right? And I was sitting next to the principal, and we were watching a lesson being taught. And it's late in the school year. I believe it was in May. And the teacher held up a card, and in the card, it was from some OG Orton Gillingham studies. And the teacher went, okay, let's review this card. A apple, ah. And then did that same and did it with all of them. And would give the name, the keyword, and then the name. Then the teacher would model the pronunciation of the sound, and they repeated it. They went through the cards. And I look over at the principal, and he's written down, excellent job reviewing the pre-skills for this lesson. But the problem was that on every one, the teacher was saying, this is the letter M, its sound is M. What sound, everyone? Good. This is the letter, you have to pretend here. This is the letter I, its sound is I. What sound, everyone? And this is May. And the teacher has not gotten rid of the modeling, so the students don't have to retrieve it from memory. And so I said to the principal, can you step out in the hall? And he did. And I said, here's the problem, that she is cueing them every time. And so the students don't have to retrieve the information from memory, so they're not learning it. They're using the keyword, they're using the modeling, they're not having to think about it. What the teacher should be doing on review is retrieval practice, where you're retrieving it from memory. And he said, oh. And I said, okay, let's ask the teacher if I could model. So I went in, used the same stimuli that she had, and I said, and put up an M, and I said, what sound, everyone? I need to hear a bigger one. What sound? Good, put up A, what sound? Good, put up I, what sound? Put up T, what sound? That's retrieval practice. So the most important part about review is not just doing it one more time, telling it, but having them retrieve it from memory. And it changes two things. It changes memory, but it changes accountability. This teacher thinks we should know it. Doesn't that make a difference in your life that you think you should know it? So, and we might do a preview by telling the students the purpose of the lesson. Now, I've often been asked, how should we tell them the goal? Should we post it? Should we tell it as a target? Should we have it as a learning intention? The big idea is that the children know what there's to learn, however you got there. You put up a post, you post it and you say, we're going to learn this, or you have them read it with you, or you tell it and have them repeat it. But I should be able to enter your classroom and at the end of the lesson, go to any child and say, what were you supposed to learn? What were you supposed to learn? What were you supposed to learn? And they should know that. So raise your hand if you've ever told them the goal of a lesson. Of course you have. I'm just reminding you, woo-woo, do it. Then we have the body of the lesson where there would be some difference, because sometime I might teach you how to do something. Sometimes I might teach you vocabulary. Sometimes I might teach you a body of knowledge, and the pedagogy differs a little bit across those. But this is what we're leaving out. The research on a closing to the lesson, even a short closing, even in kindergarten, going back over and having some, everyone? Review. Remember in college class, occasionally a prof knew to do that, and then you finally got it? You just needed it in simpler terms one more time to get it. And children like to know that we're teachers with a plan, that we know what we're doing tomorrow, that there is stability in this. We go from this to this to this. So we have a little preview, and we might assign independent work. But the research is very clear here on independent work that we should only give independent work at the point where error rates are very low. And it's been set in terms of starting independent work at least at 90% accuracy before independent work is given. And then trying to get to 95 to 98% accuracy on what we're teaching, because only then will it become mastered and become a part of permanent memory. All right, so we have lessons that are organized and what, everyone? Focused, with an opening, a body, and a closing. And within that, when I get here, you're saying it, begin lessons with a clear statement of the lesson, goal, or purposes. So I told you the purpose of our time together. You're going to tell the purpose in a math lesson, a reading lesson, a science lesson, so that the students know where they are going. And we're going to have review. And I just told you what was critical about review. So turn to your partner and tell them ones, and if they don't have it ones, help them out twos. What's critical in review? Okay, eyes up here. And if you are at home, eyes here. Well, what we review is important. We're looking at what we're going to teach, and we ask ourselves, what are the pre-skills needed? What is the knowledge that is needed? And I might go back and review it. But most importantly would be, if it's been taught, we should have kids retrieve it. Retrieval practice. It is called what, everyone? Retrieval practice. And you can see the people around here who've been here with all week with me, because we're always doing retrieval practice. They do the gesture, retrieval practice. And so review is retrieval practice of what we've already taught. That is the foundation of what we are doing. So this should be a very consistent instructional practice, that if I've taught the pre-skills, we should review it with retrieval practice. If I've taught background knowledge that you already know that's useful for this passage we're reading, we will review it with retrieval practice. And they're actively involved in the review. It's not just the teacher going da 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 da. We are giving a little information, asking a response, and it is retrieval. This is a big change in many classes, because most teachers just say, well, we have already been looking at plants, and we learned that there are many parts of plants. We've looked at the stem, we've looked at the leaves, we have also looked at the roots. And today we're going to, boom, boom. And is it possible some children with that amount of verbiage could totally check out? Yes or no? Absolutely, and they go into cognitive floating. So retrieval practice. So we want retrieval versus just recap. What else do we want? Well, if I'm teaching you how to do something, and most of what you teach, I teach you how to sound out words. I teach you to sound out long words. I teach you to say the sounds continuous as you're blending. I teach you how to write various sentence types. I teach you how to write a paragraph. I teach you how to be able to solve a traditional algorithm. I teach, and I start with dynamic demonstrations, and I do. And the most common practice of American teachers, after they've done a dynamic demonstration, to say, now it's your turn, do it. Not a good idea. It would be better if let's look at I do before we go ahead. I do means that I'm going to demonstrate how to do it. I'm not going just to hope you got it. I'm going to demonstrate it, and I might demonstrate a routine that we're going to use again and again. And I better have it be very clear as I explain it. So dynamic demonstration with clear language. And in the demonstrations, I'm going to use show and what, everyone? Tell. I'm going to show you how I sound out words, and I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. I'm going to show you how to figure out the understanding of an unknown word, and I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. And I'm going to slightly exaggerate. If there's multiple steps, I'm going to slightly exaggerate them. But what I want is clarity, clarity, clarity. Everybody, clarity, clarity, clarity. And when I'm done, I'm not going to say, now your turn. I'm going to say, now let's practice it together. And I really want to get this point because the lessons we watch almost always went from I do it to you do it, leaving out the most important part of instruction on how to do something. It is the we do it where I guide you in it. And a we do it. And in the we do it, I am going to guide you. What's the first step? Now do it. What's the second step? Now do it. What's the next step? And do it. What I called step do, step do, step do, step do. One day a gentleman went up and said to me, that sounds like the way I walk my dog. Step do, step do, step do, step do. Well, we won't forget it, but no, we were talking about guiding them through it. What's the first step? Do it. What's the next step? Do it. What's the next step? Do it. What's the next step? Do it. Or one thing to remember in we do it is that it's basically adding scaffolding, because our goal in we do it is to make the student accurate. So for example, answer these questions and you'll see what I did in a recent revision of a program. Do you think that students in intervention and sounding out words would make more errors on vowels or consonants? Whisper to your partner the answer. What did you pick? Vowels or consonants, everyone? Vowels. Because they have variant sounds. Most consonants have one sound, and even there is more consistency across languages in consonants than vowels. So most errors when we watch kids being taught with a program that I worked on, Phonics for Reading, was because they would miss the vowel sound. So we said to ourselves, after we modeled how to sound out words, we say the sounds without stopping, and then we say the word, and we ask ourselves, is it a real word? And if not, make it a real word. But then we said, when we have guided practice, we might want to check the vowel before we have them sound out the word. So we underlined the word, or underlined the vowel, and we said, what sound? And they would say, eh. And then we'd say, sound out the word, and then they would say the word. So we added scaffolding. What did we add, everyone? Scaffolding. But the problem with scaffolding is too often people never remove it. And in the end, our goal is, and we do it, that they be accurate, but that scaffolding is faded. That gradual release of responsibility, so they're having to do more of it. So we go from I do it to we do it. And then we check their understanding. A what, everyone? You do it. A what, everyone? You do it. And then and if they could do it independently, and they do it with at least 90% accuracy, then we move to having them practice it on their own. Well, this terminology of I do it, we do it, you do it, is actually wording that I coined a long time ago. And I found the book where, because it was in my library, it was in the keeper, because I wrote it. And that's one criteria. If you write it, you keep it, okay? And I looked at it in terms of using for the first time in my work. At that time, we often use demonstration, guided practice, checking for understanding. Madeline Hunter's research, most of you were not yet born. But I wanted a word that was memorable. And to make it memorable, I adopted I do, we do, you do, or I do it, we do it, you do it. Everybody, I do it, we do it, you do it. But the first row did not join us with gestures. So we have to do it woo-woo again. I do it, we do it, you do it. Now the people at home or in their office have not done it. One more time. I do it, we do it, you do it. But this is so simple, but so powerful. I dynamically demonstrate it with clear explanations, and I do it. Then I do it with you, adding some scaffolding if necessary that would support your accuracy. And then I gradually fade that out until I check to see if you could do it on your own, and then I give you independent work. Now, elementary teachers, who do you need to teach this to and use it? First, you need to use it all the time. When you're teaching academics, I say the sound, we say the sound, you say the sound. I sound out the word, we sound out the words, we sound out the words, we sound out words, we sound out words, we sound out words, you sound out words. I write a sentence, we write a sentence, we write a sentence, we write a sentence, you write a sentence. So this is at the absolute heart of what you do in elementary school. And when the high school teaches how to do something, it's the same steps. Right? But many of you raised your hand when I asked if you were an interventionist, tier 2 or tier 3, and you raised your hand. So that means that you probably have paraeducators working for you. So I want you to be certain that you teach to all your paraeducators, I do it, we do it, you do it. And that you get intervention programs that also use that embedded in it. But I see so often paraeducators who might get a quick direction from a teacher, but not have any experience teaching it. Like, Jeff was gone. Please teach him the spelling words that we did last week. The end. But if the paraeducator, I spell the words, we spell the words, you spell the words. And I always suggest to elementary teachers at open house, teach it to all parents. Parents make the error of thinking their students are experts and getting mad when they can't do it, forgetting that they bore a novice and that a novice benefits from I do it, we do it, you do it. And instead of yelling at children when they didn't do it the right way, stop and say, woo, I have a novice here. I'd better back up and teach it. I don't need, yelling doesn't help, but teaching does help. I do it, we do it, you do it. So when I was working with the coaches, I told them about an experience that I had at the Reading Leg Conference. That was one of the early ones where I was doing a EndNote. And they invited parents to come the night before, and there was actually hundreds of parents that came. And everybody who presented had to present what they wanted parents to do. And I was the last one. And I just couldn't believe how complex they were making the life of parents with all their advice. And I got my turn. I said to the parents, first, what we would love you to do is what we cannot do. There are some things that only you can do. One thing that you can do is be certain that your child's up in time, dressed appropriately for school, having something to eat, and gets to school on time, not tardy because they're missing minutes of instruction. So I can't do that. But you can be certain also that after school, that if they have work to do, that you remind them to do that, that they have something to eat that is wholesome, and they get enough sleep. We can't control that. And about an hour to 2 hours beforehand that you have said no documents such as a computer or a tablet. So we started with what parents can do that they can't. Then I said, and let me teach you how to teach. So I taught them, I do it, we do it, you do it. And so I gave examples such as this. So you want your 6-year-old and 8-year-old to do the dishes. So you use I do it, we do it, you do it. I do the dishes, pointing out what I'm doing and demonstrating it. I do the dishes, then we do the dishes, and 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 we do the dish, and we do the dishes. And when they are doing it with 90% accuracy with me giving them scaffolding and support, then I say to them, you do the dishes for eternity. So, but then a person asked in that audience, well, you just told us to break it down into obtainable pieces. So I told him the story of teaching my godchildren, about the same ages, when we went on holiday, how to set the table. And I realized right away, because they were young too, they were 6 and 5. So I broke it down so that I set the table the first night, and all they had to do was add the napkin, add the napkin, add the napkin. We did that for a few days, but we only had 10-day vacation, so it couldn't be too long. And then I taught them, add the napkin, put down the fork, put down the knife, and where it goes. And so I modeled it, and then we did it together. Put down the napkin, put down the knife. And then we mastered that. Now put down the napkin, put down the fork, put down the knife, and add the spoon. And so we broke it down to obtainable pieces. And then basically, by the time we got to the last week, set the table. And so, see, parents need to be shown how they could use what we do that's very important with their own children. Make sense? Don't forget it next year. And everybody, one more time. I do it. Oh, I'm watching you. I do it. We do it. You do it. Beautiful. And delivery. Now, when I watch classes and they're using certain tools, certain curriculum materials, I almost always see that one of the big challenges is in the delivery of it. Because we could have, maybe we're third grade teachers, we have lots of third grade teachers here, and we're all utilizing, let's say, into reading. And we're all on this lesson, but they could look very different, even though the content might be the same because of the delivery of it. So let's just review what we need to be doing in terms of the delivery. Now, here's what I know about you. You gave up part of your evening. You are already in your search of the best practices possible because you're deeply committed to the learning of your students. So much of this you're already doing, but you could polish it up a little bit. So let us remember that there is a rhythm to instruction. There is a rhythm to instruction. And the rhythm is I give a little input, I ask a question, I gain a response, I carefully monitor the actual outcome, the performance of the students, I give feedback, and I adjust. Input, question, response, monitor, feedback, adjust. Everybody, input, question, response, monitor, feedback, adjust. And input, question, response, monitor, feedback, adjust. And, oops, input, question, response, monitor, feedback, adjust. That's the rhythm of instruction. That's the rhythm in high school. They've totally lost the beat in high school. They just go input, 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 input. See you tomorrow. And we need the actual interaction of the students. So the first critical one is that you request from the students frequent what everyone responses. Frequent what everyone responses. And that is one of the best ways to improve education for our state department, our district people, is improve the opportunities to respond. The number of responses in like 10 minutes that we would want. This is one of my favorite Archerisms. Let me just tell you a little history of Archerisms. So from the very first book that I wrote a chapter in, my goal was to make it obtainable so that you'd remember it. And we had demonstration, guided practice, checking for understanding. So I said, well, I think they'll remember I do it, We do it, you do it. Trying to get it memorable so it would stick. And so when I was teaching university, well, then I would teach as I go. And a few years ago, I got for the state of Oregon, Educator of the Year for the state. And I had teachers who were teaching who I had had 30 years before, who came from my time I taught at University of Washington, time I taught at University of Oregon. Utah had a better football team this year than they usually have, woo-woo. And, well, they played not the Ducks, but the Beavers. I follow baseball, I follow football and basketball, woo-woo, because when I go places, and sometimes they're a really important thing. I just asked, what are the sports that are important in Utah? Well, your football is getting better. Okay. Anyway, so, and then I taught at San Diego State. So teachers came from all of them, and they made posters called Archerisms, which I'd never utilized the term until I saw all these teachers with these signs of what they remember. It was very cool. But in terms of frequent responses, the first one I've always used is learning is not a spectator sport. Everybody, learning is not a spectator sport. High school, you know your kids. Some of them believe that it is a spectator sport, that if their body is in class, they've met their entire obligation. They're like shocked when they're asked to like woo-woo do things. So we know for learning, you must be responding in order to learn. And this is the one that I'm really pushing. Why? Everyone does everything. Now, during COVID, I had 5 federal grants. And at that time, we asked the people who had grants, asked that we could delay the funding until children were back in school so we could use it with like woo-woo children. But they refused, and they said you must have the funding now. So I had to do, over the course of COVID, I did 500 webinars. It's hard to do 500 webinars if it worked only because the places that I had federal grants were in different time zones. So you could do one in New York, then you could do one in Michigan, then you could move over to Montana, then you could hop to Oregon, go to Alaska, and end your date in Hawaii. So I did many. But we also had, later when we started going back to school with those grants, I was training principals and coaches on observing teachers. And this is the most common habit of American teachers. They ask a question, they open it to volunteers, the students raise their hand, and the teacher calls on the volunteer. This is the most common habit of American teachers. Perfect non-example from a video. Put up the word precipitation, and the teacher asked, does anybody know the meaning of precipitation? Is it possible that that student often raises their hand, yes or no? The teacher called on the student, and the student said, precipitation, that's when you're wet under your arms. Okay, so a little air made with a similar word. And then the teacher went to the next child and asked him, what does it mean? And he said, precipitation, you sip something. Using one syllable. So one problem with the hand raised is that you could have misconceptions. And if the students are K-5, they don't have background knowledge, so they can't discern it's wrong. So you're actually introducing them to misconceptions. But the other problem is much more important, and that is equity. Is it possible that certain students would raise their hands than other students, yes or no? We got really good data to show that. Who's going to raise their hand? A high or low performing student, everyone? High. A student that is proficient in English or emerging, again, proficient. A student that is very outgoing or one that isn't. Which one, everyone? Outgoing. And that is exactly who raises their hand. And in one study, they found that every teacher in this room could tell me the 3 students that were likely to raise their hands. True? You would just go boom, boom, and boom. Just like that, you would know it. And that's what they did in the studies. We're talking, however, about the most unequitable instructional practice that we can use is constantly starting our instruction. Does anybody know what a fraction is? Does anybody know what precipitation is? Does anybody? And having them raise their hands. All you're doing is teaching the best and leaving the rest. So everyone does everything means everybody says it, everybody writes it down, everybody puts up their fingers, everybody tells it to their partner. This should be, for your district people, it should be a district mandate. Everyone does everything. Our schools have a no hand raise policy. The only time you raise your hand is one, if the teacher says, raise your hand. Everybody, raise your hand. Okay. Then I might call on someone within that randomly. Or if you have a question for me that's academic, then you can raise your hand. So frequent responses. But the research is so good on this that when you have many responses, the students are more, what, everyone? On task, with enthusiasm, everyone, on task. That if you have frequent responses, there's more academic achievement or more, what, everyone? Learning, that's our goal. And this is the blessing of responses. As the responses go up, inappropriate behavior goes down. This is because almost all inappropriate behavior studies and management show they happen in voids. So if everybody is doing things and there's many responses, there's not too many voids. For example, you can't look at a teacher and say an answer simultaneously, kick someone under the table. Humans are not meant for multitasking. All you do is serial tasking. You do not do multitasking. So don't tell your husband or your children that you multitask, because you don't. You can't. You do one, then the next, serial. But it does reduce management problems. And once again, so many of you are intervention. You want to intensify intervention, increase the opportunities to respond that students are given in the group. The more they respond, the more they're going to retain. All right. So I'm often asked, well, like, how many responses are like good? Well, some meta-analysis have looked at many studies of expert teachers to get us an idea. For example, when the answers were very simple, like choral responses where we said it together, where the choral response was short and the same, or if they were doing a gesture, or if they're holding up a response card, those expert teachers had in elementary K through 6, 3 to 5 opportunities to respond in a minute. Input, response, input, response, input, response, input, response, input, response. But it actually is input, question, response, followed by feedback and monitoring and feedback and adjusting. So you might want to have your coach come in and count the number of responses that were requested in 10 minutes to figure out where you are on the 3 to 5. But you know what? The studies that we did on saying like sounds or words during guided practice, that we got from 10 to 12 responses per minute by expert teachers. So it's even higher, because if I'm saying what sound, what sound, what sound, what sound, we can cover much more. And even if the responses are a little more complex, like you've got to tell it to your partner, you have to write it down and solve this problem, still the expert teachers had 1 response per minute. So you might say, ooh, I need to up my responses per minute. And I do need to tell you, though, that there's 2 kinds of responses. For example, if I'm teaching a math lesson and we have a 2-column addition problem, we're doing a traditional algorithm, and I might say like this, do we start by adding the 1s or the 10s? First, we add the what, everyone? The 1s. And when we add it, it has to, if it is more than 9, we are going to regroup. So if it's more than 9, we do what? Everyone, we regroup. So I could get academic responses, but I could also say, look here, put your finger under the word. Those are behavioral responses, but they make a difference in terms of increasing attendance, or not attendance, but attention, and increasing appropriate behavior. So they are counted, behavioral responses are counted along with academic responses. Okay? And even at the secondary level, if they're writing something, the expert teachers still got at least 1 response every 10 minutes. So, but I've gone into a lot of high school classes where it's totally silent except for the teacher talking for 50 minutes. Wow. And then I look down the halls and I just say, the children that are in these classes are heroes to be here because of no responses. If you went to college, you were a hero to be in every subject, every day, all hour-long lecture. Because raise your hand if you were ever in a class that had no responses for this semester. And you paid $100,000 to do it. So would you check your, well, if you have this already, it's on 42, but I've just put in yellow the types of responses that particularly were helpful when you were teaching K-5, which most of you are. We might have what kind of responses, everyone? Unison choral responses. The only thing really to remember there is you need a signal so that they will say it together. Think and say. Or everyone, and they say it. Or when they go like that, then they say it. So I went to one school where every primary teacher and intermediate teacher had in their pocket a clicker. And so they would point to the word and click, and the kids would say it on the click. And the kids were perfect. They said things together. They had much more they covered because there was really cute, really good signals. So the second time I met with these teachers, this group of teachers brought me my own personal clicker. And so now I have Woo in this room, my very own clicker. And it said dog and cat clicker. Now I've had a dog, I've had a cats, and I've never been able to train a cat, period. Dogs I can train, Woo, a clicker might be useful, but cats, no. But children, getting them to say it together worked very well with the clicker. We might have partners. Should we use turn and talk? Yes or no, everyone? No, we need more structure. 1s and 2s, 1s tell your partner, 2s tell your partner, so that we have structured partners. And we could use whiteboards. So we use them in math. Write the next number, show me. Write the answer, show me. Write down the problem, show me. The major thing is, don't let children hold it up right away, because would some children mimic or copy their response, yes or no? Right. And well, at least they care. And so have them lay it down here, write on it, monitor, 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 and then have them hold it up. Whiteboards are terrific. We could have them use gestures, but don't force it. Gestures that are useful, but not all added gestures do that. So I was teaching children that every syllable has one vowel sound. Everybody put one finger up. Every syllable has one vowel sound. And that gesture was really useful. They did not forget. Every syllable has one vowel sound. And holdups. Now, again, I mentioned this before, but this is research on an area that has not led to generalized practice. When they looked at what were the strongest ways to actively engage kids, one was unison choral responses, and the other was holdups. Hold up your finger to show the answer. Hold up your slate to show the answer. Hold up the response card to show the answer. Why? Well, simply because of two things. When everybody holds it up, I can hold everybody accountable. When I say it to your partner, I might be able to listen this partnership and that partnership, but not all partnerships. So I can't hold everybody accountable. Second, when I have holdups, I have the purest feedback on formative assessment because all of them, I can look at their answers versus you might be mouthing it, but not saying the right word. I saw that. And another child might just be mimicking it from their neighbor. But when I have them put up a response card or a response sheet that shows the answer, I can hold everybody accountable and I have better feedback in terms of their accuracy. Now we can also work on having more reading. And one of the things that many books recommend is silent reading. But here is the problem: the number of silent reader fakers that are in your classes. Right? They look down, look up and say, I'm done. And they could not have read it. So we often use instead whisper reading, where they mouth it. And when we go around and stop at you, you then voice it. And then you go back to whispering it. And I come to you and you voice it so that I can actually move around the room when they are doing what we would call silent reading, but we replaced it with whisper reading. I can actually get formative assessment as I listen to you right in the active lesson. Okay? We could do choral reading, which I've had you do, read it together. Closed reading, I'm going to read up to a point, you're going to say the word, or you're going to read to the end of the paragraph. Or we could read with partners. Now, here's the problem, because many of the books are having the students read it to their partner. But could we have partners that had different reading abilities at this moment? Could that happen, yes or no? Could a partner be embarrassed to read to their partner, yes or no? And so this simple thing that we started doing, we made it so when we say once, read it to your partner, the partner could say me or we. And if they believed that they could read it accurately and fluently and their partner is following along, they would say me. Or they can invite their partner to read it with them. So we've taught the students how to read it with their partner. You know, we need to not only have students get a lot of practice, but we also need to have it safe for them. And me and we is a way to make partners safer. I was telling the coaches today that I noticed that when I do call on individuals to check out their understanding, I see children get very anxious. So I started doing it particularly in schools that have many English language learners. or students that have not developed their own language yet. I have them stand up with their partner when I call on them. And maybe I say one, say the answer, but their two is there to help them out. Because I want children to feel safe, that they are supported when they are in my class. Well, we have 10 minutes, but don't worry, we're picking up the pace here. We should ask for responses, but we should do what, everyone? We should monitor. And that means that we are going to listen carefully to their responses. We're going to be present, and we're going to look carefully at their work. And sometimes we're going to move out and monitor with walk around, look around, talk around. Everybody, walk around, look around, talk around. During independent work, I don't sit at my desk and grade papers. Nope. If I want good management and good learning, I'm going to do walk around, look around, talk around. But I see many teachers who are just doing what I call California cruising. They walk around getting their steps in, but they're not looking at the work and communicating to the child. And they need to communicate in terms of feedback. The two that are most critical for you is feed that back that is corrective or feedback that is affirmative or praise. So I'm walking around, you're doing very well, and I say, excellent. But I try to use specific praise. Excellent. You finished all of those items. That tells about what they did well, but what they should do in the future. Ooh, I look at yours and excellent. You have very good handwriting. I can read it today. Woo. Told them what they did well and what they need to do tomorrow. So affirmative feedback, particularly what's called specific praise. What is it called? Specific praise. And then correcting them if there is an error. Well, feedback is critical and it needs to be clear. And we could give it to the entire group, or we could give it to what, everyone? Individuals. But in that sequence, input, question, response, and feedback was after every response. So the students always know what was the right answer. The Archerism here is feedback feeds forward. Everybody, feedback feeds forward. It tells you what to do in the future. So that's why I work on watching my own videos, because I'll say, ooh, Archer, you needed more active participation. You needed more eye contact. You need to have a perkier pace. Hey, I'm doing my very best after teaching 8 hours, which you also did today. But feedback feeds forward. It allows us to get better and better. If we want to be expert teachers, we have to be very conscious of what we're doing. We have to video ourselves, watch it, maybe watch it with a coach, watch it with a colleague, and look for things that are well done or ones that we can improve on, counting our opportunities to respond, looking at our use of praise, looking at our, that's the only path to being an expert, is to look at our own behaviors and alter them based on that feedback. Well, we also need a brisk pace. Now, I was asked yesterday, well, I have a teacher that I'm coaching who just is not perky about anything. Not when you talk in conversation, not when you go out to dinner, it's not perky. Not when you visit the home, it's not perky. What do you do with someone who is not perky? Well, you are a universal perky group, so we don't have to worry about you. You came in with energy, you've been acting with energy, you're nodding your head. Down here, we've got a really good head shaker smiler, woo-woo, and you participated. But what are some things that, let's see if I put this in here. Yes. Would you be perkier if you prepared? Yes or no, everyone? Okay, so the more you know the content, this is pretty perky because I know the content well. But the secret at your grade levels is routines. so that if students know routines and know what's coming, then you as a teacher can go through it in a faster way and they know what's coming up. So routines are it. So we're having a word that we don't know. We say the sounds, not stopping between the sounds. We say the word and we ask ourselves, is it a real word? So we have a routine. When we are writing a paragraph, first we plan, and then from the plan we write a draft, then we revise it, then we edit it. It is a routine. My research is on how to read long words, so we had a routine called the rewards long word routine, where you circle the prefix, circle the suffix, underline the vowels to break it into parts. You read the parts, you blend them together, you say the whole word, and then you ask yourself, is it a real word? Well, we do that again and again with different parts changing, prefixes changing, suffixes changing, but the kids have everyone a routine. Of course, behavioral routines are equally important. This is how we enter the classroom. This is how we start the lesson. This is what we do in whole group. This is what we do in small group. This is what we do in line. This is what we do in the line in lunchroom. Routine, routines, routines. Do high school kids, you need routines? Oh my goodness, we'd have fewer management problems at the high school if the chemistry teacher would say, when you go to your lab, the first thing to know is you will not turn on the Bunsen burner. No. Number two, you will have your experiment in front of you in written order, and each of you will have it. And number three, you will follow the routine there in terms of the experiment, and you will listen to your colleagues and be like woo-woo nice. Okay, high school explanations and what you are requiring needs to be taught to them. But here's the main thing. Forgive me, raise your hand if you teach kindergarten, first, second, or third grade. What we noticed is a lot of verbosity by primary teachers. Okay, let me share with you the most recent one. Okay, here we have a word and AI. What sound, everyone? A. Sound out the word with me. A-Z. Everyone again, daisy. So what's the word, everyone? Daisy. Ooh, how good. You did an excellent job. Not only is it a word with AI in it, but it has two parts, daisy. So you're reading longer words. And it made me be reminded of the importance in my own life on daisies. When I got married, I had daisies that I held. In fact, the church, the flowers were daisies because they're fast I had a marriage in March, and there were still daisies in my hometown in the state of Washington, and we had lots of daisies. It's one of my favorite flowers. Maybe you'll try raising some daisies, because you can raise them from seeds. You don't have to have the plants to daisies. But the way you sounded it out, you didn't stop between the letters. Okay, better, it would go like this. What sound AI? Everybody, it is A. Sound out the word with me. Daisy, by yourself. This whole word. And daisy is a flower. What's the word? Move on. All right. So we don't have to dress things up with random verbiage. So we want to avoid verbiage, and we want to avoid digressions. Sometimes you have to talk to yourself. Something comes into your own mind, like remembering that marriage long ago when you were only 20 and you had daisies and you want to share it. Sometimes you have to say, Archer, no, because it takes their cognitive load to something else. They'll remember what you had as your flowers, but they might not remember daisy or AI, or it's two syllables. Well, and our students need practice. Judicious practice to learn it. Now I'm going to skip ahead. And we're going to end up with a quick review of this. And you have these slides so you could have this as a way to talk to your colleagues in your third grade team and your fourth grade team and your high school English team. That we're going to focus on what, everyone? Critical content. We're going to break it down. Our lessons are going to be organized and focused. We are going to state the lessons goals, and we're going to go back with review, but it's going to be what? Retrieval practice. And we're going to have the steps of everybody. I do, we do, you do. And when we deliver it, we're going to have frequent responses. We are going to monitor. We're going to give them feedback. We're going to have a brisk pace, and we're going to have enough practice that will lead to learning, and judicious means enough. Well, as when you get this, one day, just 2 years ago, I was in Southern Ohio in a school district, and I was wrapping up the week, and a principal came up to me and said, Anita, we've been here all week. Do you have a one-page summary? I said, no, I don't. He said, well, do it tonight. So I did. Okay. And so this gives you an idea of how it fits together, how we plan for instruction, how we teach it with an opening, a body, and a closing. And embedded in it, we have I do it, we do it, you do it. And we have practice afterwards. And simultaneous, we're delivering it with many responses, monitoring those responses, giving feedback, and having a brisk pace. So woo-woo, the one-pager. And this is like if you are not here in person, you have the slide that we will send you so that you could reproduce this and make as many copies as you want of eacherism. So we're going to wrap it up with quick, and we're going a little bit over because we had to start late. So we're going to do this quickly. I'm going to read, then you're going to read it. Teach the stuff and cut the fluff. How well I teach equals how well they learn. And when I teach them how to do something, I'm going to use, and do it with me, I do it, we do it, you do it. And when I deliver it, I'm going to remember that what, everyone? Learning is not a spectator sport. It would be better to have everyone does everything. And I'm going to monitor. I'm going to look carefully, listen carefully, and when they're working independently or working with a partner, I'll move out and circulate. I will, what, everyone? Walk around, look around, talk around. And every time I give a response, I am going to provide what, everyone? Feedback, because feedback feeds forward. One more time. Feedback feeds forward. Now, recently, the best educator I've ever worked with, and for 35 years, I did designing of programs with Dr. Mary Gleason. And recently she said, this one, Anita, needs work. I wanted to move away from perfect practice makes perfect. Well, it's not really true. Perfected practice over time makes perfect and permanent. Okay, work on it some more. Okay, but then there's some in terms of management. And predictability predicts ability. One more time. Predictability predicts ability. Do our students do better if they know what's the expected in whole group instruction? Yes or no? If they know what routines we're going to use in small group instruction, would that be useful? And how we enter the room, how we put our things away, how we line up, how we go down. Yes, we make things very predictable so that actually supports our children tremendously. Do our children in our own homes do better with predictability? Yes or no? Do the people of our country do better when things are predictable? Yes or no? And this is actually one of my favorites. If you expect it, pre-correct it, everybody. If you expect it, pre-correct it. Almost every academic error you could predict. You know what the misconceptions might be, the errors that might be, and so you correct it beforehand. Just like I asked them, look at these letters, what sound? Now let's sound out the word. That was scaffolding, that was a pre-correction to make them accurate. But this is what we need to do in terms of management. You pretty well know when challenges are going to occur and you need to pre-correct it. So give you one example. When I lived in the state of Washington, in La Conner, Washington, on the Puget Sound, my best friend was a principal. And one day my principal came to me and said, her name Linda Jenkins, and she said, Anita, we are taking a trip to see the tulip farms, and they're going to be on buses, but our children have not been on buses because they walk to school. But I really need an adult on every bus. Will you do it? Okay. So I said to myself, Nita, think of the errors that might occur on a bus that no one has ever been on a bus. So I made a poster, and I made it to be taped in the front of the bus. And I had the kids load the bus, and then I taught them the behaviors for the bus. If you expect it, pre-correct. Number one, we use our quiet voices on the bus so that the driver is not distracted, because we want the driver to be thinking about driving. So do we use loud voices on the bus? Yes or no, everybody? Do we use quiet voices? Yes or no? Number two, there's only some acceptable behaviors on a bus, a school bus, a bus when you're an adult, or on a train similar to a bus. And here's are the behaviors you can do when we take the long ride on the bus. Number one, you must stay in your seat. Your whole body must be in the bus. You have to be in your seat with your body in the bus. Why? I've been on enough buses with arms out there, with the windows open, with kids standing up. You're sitting and your whole body is on the bus. And here's the activities that you can engage in. Number one, bus activity. You could have a quiet conversation with the other person sitting next to you. Whoa, quiet conversation. What is it, everyone? Quiet conversation. Number two, you could take a nap. Yeah, really long trips on a bus, you take a nap. Number three, you could read a book. Whoa, yes, a magazine, a book, read something. This pretty much wraps up when you could do on a bus, on a train, or on an airplane. So did we have better trips with that? What I didn't know is the bus driver was the head of buses for this very large district. So he took my poster, he typed it up beautifully and had posters made at Kinko copies. And at the beginning of the year, it was taught to all the bus drivers to do at every stop. And did they reduce the challenge on buses? Yes or no? Significant. And you have to remember, the first experience that children have in regards to school is the bus ride. So if you expect it, pre-correct it. If you expect it, pre-correct it. And raise your hand if this is your first or second year of teaching. Yes, welcome, 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 welcome. And this is the most important for you. Avoid the void, for they will fill it. Everybody, avoid the void, for they would fill it. Well, as we wrap this up, there's only one here that was given to me by a child. So one day I was in Salinas, California, and I was doing a demonstration lesson with many grades, including a fourth grade. And so I did the demonstration lesson, and then the students went out to recess. And I love to go out to recess to see like what's in at recess. You know, is Foursquare still in or not? And so I'm sitting out there or standing out there watching over recess, and this young man comes running across the field to me. And I said, "You were in the 4th grade lesson." He said, "Yes." I said, "Did you have something you wanted to tell me?" He said, "Yes, Dr. Archer, if there was a teaching contest, you would win it." Oh, you know, you have moments like that, and you asked about moments that you will never, ever, ever forget. But then I said to him, "Why did you say that?" And out of the mouth of a 4th grader came, "You teach with passion, you manage with compassion." Isn't that exactly what we need to be doing? Teach with passion, manage with. We are very thankful that you are here tonight. We're very thankful for the people who were online with us. And this is recorded in some way so you could also share it. And did we have any closing that we needed to? Yes, we did. Woo woo. We had an opening, we had a closing. Excellent. But really, just the fact you're here, the posters are where if they exit? That the exits are up there? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Julie, go for it.
Was just gonna
State
say,
Department, Head of Language Arts. Yes, go.
thank you so much for being here. We're so grateful that you decided to spend your evening here with Anita to learn and to grow and to perfect your talent and share with the teachers in your schools. And we can't be more grateful for all of the hard work and the dedication that you put in every single day to help and support our students in Utah. And so thank you again. And the posters are going to be at the exit.
Exits. Posters at
So
exits.
thank you so
Matches this. Yay. Thank you, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It was a delight. And I know that you heard many things that you're already doing, but they could be polished up and be reminded of them even as you're teaching on a Friday. You know, bell-to-bell instruction is critical even on Friday. All right. Have a great, great, great rest of your winter. I'm so pleased you have snow. You know, you're in Utah, snow. Go.
We just need snow on the ground down here too.
I know you don't have enough snow.